This is Bratislava Airport, and it's the site of one of our latest rewilding projects. Well, okay, we've not gone crazy just yet. It's of course not in the terminal, but instead here, right next to the busy runways. You see, this place is home to one of the last remaining populations of an endangered, but very cute, and crucially very important little animal that few people know about, the European suslik.
So yeah, this is a really strange place for us to run a project. I mean, look at all this noise, look at how busy it is. But the fascinating fact that the ground squirrels are thriving here, despite declining everywhere else in Europe, gives us a really important clue as to what they need to survive and to thrive. Which is of course why we want to take some ground squirrels from here and drop them off at a brand new place for them to live.
And that is of course another airport. I mean, why reinvent the wheel when you can stick to what's working? But before we get into all the trapping and releasing, I want to properly introduce you to these little rodents. This is the European suslik, also known as the European Ground Squirrel, and it is a small ground-dwelling mammal that belongs to the Spermophilus genus. They measure around 20 centimeters and weigh in at about 300 grams.
So the squirrels, they also create habitat for other species, like this solitary bee that we can see here. Because the solitary bee, for instance, it needs uncovered earth to make a nest. So by having a presence of these squirrels, we're also creating habitat for different species. For instance, lizards will often hide in the burrows. Bumblebees will also make nests in burrows that are not used anymore. So, yeah, it's a nice keystone species.
They live in big colonies in open grasslands, where they keep watch by standing on their back legs, much like meerkats. This allows them to communicate any danger to each other, allowing them to stay safe. And for this to work, they really need to have the short grass so that they can keep visual contact with each other, which is why they're so dependent on these open grasslands. In a wilder and more distant past, this habitat would have been created by herds of large herbivores, which grazed down these large open areas. Then, as humans took control of the landscape, the ground squirrel managed to continue existing on the edges of agricultural fields, grassy slopes, cultivated meadows, and of course, pastures. This means that up until the 1960s, they were thriving and were even considered to be an abundant pest. However, what happened next threw them off balance, and it can only be described as something akin to a cabbage Armageddon, a never-ending sea of monoculture crops blanketing the landscape with their lack of diversity and their lack of opportunity for anything to live there except for the desired commercial species. The squirrels went extinct in places like Germany, Poland, and Croatia, and in other countries their populations declined sharply. Take Slovakia as an example. In less than 50 years, the population declined by a whopping 99%. This disaster has landed them on the endangered tier, on the IUCN Red List, and it is also the reason that an airport is their last refuge. I mean, how destroyed is the natural landscape that this place is the last place a species can hide? It's quite sad, really. This whole story reminds me of the cautionary tale of the passenger pigeon. That was once the most abundant bird in North America, accounting for 40% of all birds. But somehow, they ended up being shot until there wasn't a single one left. We're at a point now where we can step in and avoid the worst. But work needs to be done. So let's start by looking at their populations. There are broadly 3 meta-populations of ground squirrels in the country. We have West Slovakia, Central Slovakia, and Čerova Vrošvina. I'm sorry about that, I probably butchered it, but it's the best I can do. And each of these meta-populations is composed of small, isolated ground squirrel colonies. Individually, these colonies are under threat, and many of them could use with some reinforcements and some additional genetic diversity. However, we are lucky that in each one of these meta-populations, there's at least one potential colony that is still thriving, which can be a donor of these much-needed reinforcements. And for this first year, we focused here on the Western Slovakia meta-population that has Bratislava Airport as its main thriving colony. To get the work done, we are once again working with our amazing Slovak partners at BROS. They keep coming up with crazy but brilliant ideas, and we are of course keen to keep funding them. The action plan for this year is simple. Go to the thriving population from Bratislava Airport, trap them, and take them to create 5 new colonies, as well as reinforce 10 existing colonies that are struggling. And we'll also be taking some squirrels from 5 other places where they're also doing well. But unfortunately, we can't make all of this public because we need to protect the squirrels. So for this story, we're going to focus on the population at Bratislava Airport and also the release sites at the other airport. The goal with all this is, of course, to create additional resilience for existing colonies, as well as start new ones in places where we know that they have the best conditions and their future is not left to chance. And then there's an additional twist. The squirrels in the airport colony have spread to this field here, in the adjacent industrial zone, but unfortunately, it's scheduled for development. So our project has also turned into a race against time to evacuate a 500-strong colony that lives here and get them safely to a new home. We'll be spending around 13,700 euros this summer on the trapping and have committed to support this project with 54,000 euros until 2027 to ensure that this work can be done properly. And as usual, this funding comes from our Mossy Earth members that contribute to our projects every month. We've really broadened the range of our work and our projects, which now go from the bottom of the ocean to the dry desert and from the cold Icelandic birchwoods to the rainforests of Ecuador. All of this work is either set up by our own biologists, like Andrea, or in close partnership with a small list of carefully selected organizations that do amazing work, like BROS. And by becoming a member, you'll be supporting all of it, while also staying up to date with the new developments. So if that sounds like something you would like to do, then please consider heading over to mossy.earth to learn more. Now, let's go catch some squirrels.
So these are the live traps that we're using. They were made specifically by the zoologists to trap ground squirrels. Basically how it works, the animal goes in and voila.
Essentially, we have a tasty little snack for them, like this fresh apple. And then they decide to nibble at their luxurious breakfasts, and this small metal piece moves, releasing the bigger one that allows the spring to close the door.
We're basically scanning the area with our binoculars, and once we see this is up, we know that the animal is inside.
And after a bit of prep, the team set the traps right next to their burrows to give them the ultimate temptation to go in. And then it was a waiting game. But we didn't have to wait long to catch our first one. And after that, things really got going. Trapping went really well, and you could see that the team knew what they were doing. After the squirrels were caught, we put them in this transport box here, which is especially designed for them so as not to stress them too much. And, well, not all of them were keen, of course, but it was for their own good.
He doesn't want to go in.
The numbers just kept climbing, and the only small mishap was a fugitive that managed to make its escape while being transferred to the box.
So I'll just leave it up to the professionals then.
So you just did a great job, you released the squirrel.
Yes, be free squirrel. maybe we'll catch him on the second round. Or I don't think he's not gonna
be fancy about apples anymore.
No, he's not gonna get tricked again. Oh well. So 32 trapped and 20 more to go. So next round.
I joined in the afternoon as I was filming at another project in the morning, and I was just in time for the last few squirrels of the day.
How do you feel?
I mean, a little bit bad for this little guy, but I'm excited for what it means for the little guy and where it's gonna go next. I'm sure it'll be a lovely place. Probably better than Bauhaus, the Skonto, the Decathlon, the DHL, and the airport. So we're getting you a nice new home at a quieter airport.
Then, the next day, it was time to go to one of our release sites at a smaller airport.
Yeah, so this airport was supposed to be put up for development, but the Aero Club have notified the State Nature Conservancy that we have these squirrels here, which is now an endangered species. So this was put as basically as part of the Natura 2000 protected area. So now it's a protected site.
Do they have a special code for protected airport habitat.
Yeah. Probably not, but it would be funny.
So this here is the airport where we are releasing the squirrels. And I know what you're thinking. This isn't really the same as Bratislava airport. Where are the big jets and the runways? The squirrels won't feel at home here, you know, as they do in the Bratislava airports. But anyway, this is where we are releasing them. It's a small local aviation club. And today I'm here with Adriana, Dima, and then Erwin and Michael. And yeah, we are going to be releasing some of the squirrels here so they can settle into their new home.
After taking DNA samples to monitor how the new squirrel DNA will mix with the existing population, each squirrel is also marked.
Basically, the top hair is a bit lighter than the bottom. The bottom is quite dark, as you can see. So we'll make a mark, and then we'll be able to monitor if the squirrel is still present here or not. So also, you know, making one mark on the right side of the body, then the next one can be marked on the left side of the body. And like this, we can see if the individuals that we've released are still present here.
Now at this point, one would think that we could simply release them onto this field and they would find a hole for themselves. You know, open the doors and let them run. But the issue is that they don't know this area yet and they're a little bit panicky right now. So they might simply bolt off in the wrong direction across one of these fields and completely miss the colony and the existing burrows and then never return. So we found each squirrel their own hole that met all the necessary requirements.
So we picked this hole because it's at an angle, which means this is an escape hole. And it's usually not very deep, and the animals dig it out to quickly escape the predators. And we know that if it's at an angle, it will be not clogged with any hay or anything. So our animal can go inside and calm down, relax before it comes out and starts to explore its new home.
And now our triangle squirrel was finally ready to be released into its new home. And a few releases later, this happened. It was our first escapee. This squirrel decided that the hole we gave it wasn't adequate and decided to run for it. So at this point, it was crucial to catch it again to make sure we got it into a hole. First, it tried crawling around until eventually it simply decided to play dead. And this gave Erwin the opportunity to channel his inner lynx.
Wow.
With the squirrel safely back in its hole, we completed the rest of the releases and then left a GoPro next to one of the burrows, so we can check on that in a bit. This whole process was repeated all summer at a variety of locations, and overall, we caught and released more than 800 squirrels in this first year. Adriana added a bit more context in a post for our members, but most of the locations will have to remain private, like I mentioned. Okay, now, if you want to support these weird but impactful projects, then please consider becoming a member at Mossy.earth. And if that feels like a really big commitment right now, then subscribing to the channel is a huge help as well. Until next time.